dissolving the tight grip of patterns that don't serve, that are not integrated with the whole of my being. This has been the biggest inspiration as well as qualification for dedicating my life's work to sharing Ayurveda. The ego has a real investment in our habits. After all, if those habits go away, to the ego, it's like its life depends on it, right? The ego is committed to pleasure or pain. I'm not putting down the ego in all senses. I'm just saying that is one significant, undeniable characteristic of the ego. And so it makes it super difficult to make changes, big or small, from little things like the temperature of the water that you drink to the bigger things like worrying or overworking. And so Ayurveda provides this path, as we learned from ancient rishis, the sages who learned from the very first physician, Manvantari, a very simple language, one that you can start experimenting with by just knowing 5 or actually 8 words. The first 5 words have to do with the Pancha Maha Bhutas. Pancha meaning 5, Maha meaning great, and Bhutas meaning the elements. Prithvi in Sanskrit, earth, as Ayurveda would teach us to investigate in order to come to understand better even our sense of smell. Earth, as we say in Western science, that which is solid. Then we have apas, water. We call it liquid. And we have tejas, fire, what we call energy. And then we have vayu, air, which we understand as gas. And we have akash, ether, or space. And what the rishis observed through the senses is that everything that is in this physical world is made up of qualities, such as heavy or light, hot or cold, dry or moist, and so on, the gunas. And that all of these qualities, every quality there is contained within these 5 elements. And when these 5 elements combine, so now these are now your 3 other words outside of the 5 element ones, they form what we call doshas. And these function as the energy that stores. This is the kapha dosha, combination of earth and water elements. The energy that transforms, the pitta dosha, the one that is primarily made out of fire, but also some water. And the one that spreads, opens, moves things, vata dosha, the one that's made out of air and ether. And so in beginning to observe through our senses how these qualities impact our physiology, our psychology, outside of us, and the ones that are mostly inherent in us. Even though we all have the 5 elements, the 3 doshas in us, some of us have more of one or another. In fact, every single one of us is different in terms of what that combination is like. So then, as I began to understand this, as notice through my senses the effect that the qualities had on me, I began to notice that the cold beverage during my meal put out my digestive fire, and so I couldn't assimilate the food properly, and therefore there were digestive symptoms that came along to disturb my peace, my ease, cause dis-ease. Similarly with worrying, discovering that what I was doing, even though my intention was pure, I wanted to be of service, I wanted to help, I wanted to make things better for others, I was moving too fast, too far ahead of myself, really not being there because you can only be here. So I was just running on a treadmill, which I like to do very much, and sweat and perspire and so on, but with no result. And so through Ayurveda, I learned to slow down that excess movement of the mind, which by the way is it's comes from the Vata dosha. And in doing so, I could be more present, and therefore be of service and do that which I wanted to do, which is to lend a hand as needed. Also with overworking, as I mentioned that in the beginning as well. This was more from that fire element and the qualities that go with that strong drive to some kind of delusion that to excel, in order to excel, overwork is required. And indeed, what I discovered was that when I dropped the over off of my work, where I just did my work to my own capacity, that's when I started to excel. And so to Ayurveda, I bow for helping me release that grip to patterns that are not integrated and make room for patterns that do see the whole of my being. Patterns that recognize that, hey, yes, my intellect is very much influenced by the ego. How could it not? The ego is loud and strong and powerful. But my intellect is equally as intimate, if not more so, to those whispering sounds of my soul. The aspect of myself that could care less about immediate pain or pleasure or power or what have you. Its only concern is of my deepest aspirations, those things that surround my sense of joy, right? And so in recognizing that, even though that loud voice is there, it still is today, more so when I'm out of balance, no doubt of that. There's also a whispering sound that is there at all times. More difficult to hear when we're out of balance, but nevertheless, that's the practice, to look for that sound, that guidance, that knows, that common sense that can lead us directly to our North Star. And by North Star, I mean that which in you is filled with joy, that which in you aspires towards things that support your joy and the joy you can bring to the world. And so it's for this reason that I do this work. And now a new addition to this work is my little Ayurveda handbook, which I guide you through step by step. And it's really an opportunity for you to create your own life map. As you see, there's a lot of the pages have like little open spaces after some explanations and charts, and we keep the language simple at first, and yet because this language is so foundational, everything else that comes from this, it just oozes of common sense, and it just makes the journey so much smoother as you progress. So that's my offering. Investigate it, see if it suits you, and my great wish is that you are able to dissolve the grip of that which is in misalignment with your true nature, and so that you can connect more deeply with who you truly are. Namaste.